When a temple burns, a battle is lost and deception is revealed. Society is not looking for the truth, but for meaning. These three ancient stories show how fear turns into myth, guilt, and knowledge. The Temple of Artemis at Ephesus was more than a building. It embodied religious devotion, economic vitality, and social cohesion. In the era of King Croesus, Ephesus thrived as a prosperous hub where merchants, pilgrims, and artisans gathered. The temple symbolized continuity, a bridge between mortal life and divine protection. Artemis herself represented fertility, wilderness, and the protective forces of nature. Her temple was a guarantor of cosmic order. When people contributed to its construction or offered sacrifices within its walls, they participated in something eternal. The temple's construction, supported by Croesus and designed by architects like Metagenes, showcased unprecedented scale and ambition. Its marble columns rose higher than any structure in the Greek world. This was not mere vanity, it reflected the magnitude of the goddess herself. The temple functioned as a community center, a treasury, and a sanctuary for refugees. Its architecture declared, here, civilization reaches toward the divine. To harm it was to attack the very foundations of social existence. Herostratus was an outsider, a man without status seeking recognition in a world that offered him none. In a society organized around collective worship and inherited honor, he stood apart. Fame, for him, became a substitute for immortality. The contrast is stark. While communities invested generations in building monuments to the gods, Herostratus sought glory through destruction. His act was not mindless violence but calculated defiance. He understood that societies remember their wounds as vividly as their triumphs. On the night of the fire in 356 BC, Herostratus did more than destroy a building. He tested the premise that divine beings protected what was sacred. If Artemis was truly powerful, why did her temple burn? The act forced a confrontation between religious belief and visible reality. By choosing arson, a spectacular, irreversible crime, Herostratus ensured he would be noticed. Destruction became his language when construction was beyond his reach. Authorities executed Herostratus and decreed that his name be forgotten. Yet the historian Theopompus recorded it anyway, and the phrase Herostratic fame entered our vocabulary. This paradox reveals a fundamental truth. Memory cannot be controlled by decree. The very act of forbidding something can preserve it. Herostratus achieved exactly what he desired, not through greatness, but through the magnitude of his transgression. Why has Herostratus' name outlived the temple itself? Because his story illustrates an enduring anxiety that destruction can grant immortality as surely as creation. Every society fears those willing to sacrifice everything for recognition. The lesson persists because the human condition persists. Memory is an unmanageable process, shaped by what disturbs us as much as what inspires us. In Roman thought, the Vestal Virgins were not simply priestesses but living pillars of the state. Their sacred fire symbolized Rome's permanence. As long as it burned, Rome endured. Their chastity represented the integrity of the social contract itself. These women enjoyed extraordinary privileges, front row seats at games, the power to pardon condemned prisoners, freedom from paternal authority. But their obligations were absolute. Sexual transgression meant being buried alive. The Second Punic War placed Rome as survival in doubt. When Hannibal's forces met Roman legions at Cannae in 216 BC, Rome fielded its largest army ever assembled. Confidence ran high. The result was annihilation. In a single afternoon, Rome lost 50,000 to 70,000 men, consuls, senators, and citizen soldiers. The catastrophe demanded explanation. How could superior numbers fail so completely? Blaming the generals was politically impossible. The disaster was too vast, the leadership too widely distributed. Instead, Rome turned to religious explanation. The gods had withdrawn their favor. Why? Two Vestal virgins, Opimia and Floronia, were accused of breaking their vows. Female sexuality became the vessel for explaining male military failure. The logic was circular but compelling. If the state's spiritual foundation was corrupted, defeat must follow. The accusations may have been true, fabricated, or somewhere between. Historical sources conflict. What matters is that the ritual worked. The accused were found guilty and executed with deliberate cruelty. One buried alive, the other driven to suicide, while her alleged lover was beaten to death in the forum. This was not justice but theater. The punishment restored cosmic order by purging pollution. The brutality itself proved Rome's seriousness about moral renewal. Shortly after the executions, Marcus Claudius Marcellus won a significant victory. This timing seemed to confirm the religious diagnosis, appease the gods, and fortune returns. Of course, Marcellus' success had military explanations, better tactics, different terrain, smaller scale. But Rome found its mythological narrative more satisfying. The story validated itself by selective memory. This pattern recurs throughout history. When collective trauma demands explanation, societies identify scapegoats who embody moral or spiritual failure. Women, foreigners, religious minorities. Whoever occupies a liminal position becomes liable. The Vestal Virgins were perfect candidates, powerful yet subordinate, sacred yet vulnerable. Their bodies sites where private behavior and public consequence supposedly merged. Hero II of Syracuse faced a ruler's perennial problem, trust. He commissioned a golden crown for the gods, providing pure gold to the craftsmen. When the crown returned, it weighed correctly. But was it truly pure gold, or had the artisan secretly substituted cheaper silver? The crown symbolized legitimacy. If Hero could be deceived in sacred matters, his authority was compromised. Yet he could not simply accuse the craftsmen without proof. Traditional methods, weighing, visual inspection, revealed nothing. Equal weight meant no evidence. The crown looked golden. The craftsman denied wrongdoing. Hero was trapped between suspicion and certainty, between appearance and truth. This impasse represented a broader epistemological crisis. How can hidden realities be revealed without destruction? Melting the crown would prove its composition but destroy the sacred object. Archimedes was not an isolated genius but a beneficiary of Hellenistic intellectual culture. Educated in Alexandria, he moved fluently between theoretical mathematics and practical engineering. For him, knowledge was meant to solve real problems, not merely contemplate abstractions. This integration of thought and action made him indispensable to Hero, who valued both Archimedes' as siege engines and his scientific insight. The famous bathhouse moment, whether literal or metaphorical, represents a methodological breakthrough. Archimedes noticed water displacement and recognized its implications for measuring volume. If gold and silver have different densities, equal weights of each would displace different amounts of water. Eureka marked the transition from intuition to proof. The method required no confession, no destruction, only careful measurement. When Rome besieged Syracuse during the Second Punic War, Archimedes turned his intellect toward war machines. His devices reportedly held Roman forces at bay for years. Yet when the city fell in 112 BC, a Roman soldier killed him, perhaps not recognizing the elderly mathematician, perhaps not caring. The legend says Archimedes was drawing geometric figures in the sand, so absorbed in thought that he ignored the danger. His death symbolizes the tragic collision between reason and violence, intellect and power. The mind that could move the world could not save itself from the sword. These three episodes reveal a common pattern in how societies process crisis. When the sacred is destroyed, when armies are slaughtered, when trust erodes, communities demand explanations that restore coherence. Herostratus sought immortality through negation, achieving fame by attacking what others held eternal. Rome needed scapegoats when military disaster shattered confidence, finding them in women whose bodies supposedly bore cosmic responsibility. Hero required certainty when deception threatened legitimacy, finding it through reason rather than ritual. Together, these stories trace humanity's gradual movement from mythological thinking toward rational inquiry, yet they also reveal that this transition is never complete. We still search for villains when catastrophe strikes. We still impose narratives on chaos. We still need to believe that disorder has causes and that identifying those causes restores control. History is not merely what happened, but how successive generations have made meaning from what happened. Religion, fame, and science offer different frameworks for this meaning-making, but the underlying drive remains constant. We are creatures who cannot tolerate unexplained suffering. These ancient stories endure because they mirror our contemporary fears and hopes. They remind us that the quest for explanation, whether through myth, morality, or mathematics, is itself a defining feature of human consciousness. We inherit not just the facts of the past but the ways previous generations struggled to understand their own present. In this continuity lies both warning and wisdom. Our explanations reveal as much about ourselves as about the events we seek to explain.